There comes a moment when you realize you're nothing more than a wallet to your own child. That Sunday morning didn't just wound my pride, it shattered every belief I had about what being a father truly meant. When I unwrapped Ryan's gift to me, I knew something inside me had died that day. My name is Richard Thompson. I'm 67 years old, and I never imagined I'd spend Father's Day feeling like a stranger in my own son's world. It was a chilly March morning in 2024, here in Boston. I woke before sunrise, as insomnia had become my most loyal companion in recent years. Standing before the bathroom mirror, I studied every line carved into my face, each one telling a silent story of sacrifice and sleepless nights. I put on the blue dress shirt Ryan had bought me years ago, back when he still cared about the small details. I even dabbed on some of the aftershave my late wife, Sarah, used to love cleaning. To what little remained of the days when love and respect came naturally. Welcome to Truth Stories. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our daily stories. We bring you powerful real-life tales that will leave you thinking long after they end. After getting ready, I stopped by the corner bakery where Mrs. Parker, the kind old lady who'd seen me grow old, smiled warmly. "Something special for Father's Day, Mr. Thompson?" she asked. I nodded, saying, "Yes. I think my son has a surprise waiting for me." There was a soft warmth in my chest, that innocent hope only fathers carry, the kind that would soon turn cold. Carrying Ryan's favorite chocolate dessert, I drove to his house around noon. The front door was slightly open, and laughter drifted from the backyard, laughter that didn't include me. I heard my granddaughter Grace's giggles, and then Laura's familiar voice, full of energy. But what I saw next made my heart stop. Ryan stood there, holding a camera, smiling proudly as he handed a brand new Ford Ranger to his father-in-law, Robert Johnson. Everyone clapped. Robert hugged him tightly. "You're like a son to me," he said. And that's when Ryan looked at him and replied, "You've been like a father to me." Those words hit me harder than any blow I'd ever taken in my life. I stopped by Romano's Bakery, where Mrs. Eleanor always greets me warmly. "Something special for Father's Day, Mr. Richard?" she asked with a knowing smile. I told her absolutely. I was certain Kevin had something wonderful planned. That warm feeling in my chest would soon freeze solid, though I had no idea what was coming. Carrying the tiramisu cake, Kevin's childhood favorite, I arrived at his house just after noon. The front gate stood ajar, and I could hear laughter floating from the backyard. Laughter that somehow excluded me. I recognized my granddaughter Sophie's voice, bright and teenage. Then came the cheerful tone of Jennifer, my daughter-in-law. As I rounded the corner into the backyard, the scene before me knocked the wind from my lungs. Kevin stood there, phone in hand, recording, as he presented a set of car keys to his father-in-law, Robert. A brand new Chevy Silverado sat gleaming in the driveway, temporary tags still visible. The crowd erupted in applause, every eye locked on the spectacle. Robert accepted with theatrical gratitude, running his hand along the hood like he'd just won the lottery. Jennifer was filming everything, announcing to the world how fortunate her dad was to have such an incredible son-in-law. What happened next would set everything in motion. Keep watching. My son, the boy I'd raised alone, the one I'd given everything for, stood there grinning with pride. "You're more than a father-in-law, Robert. You're like a real dad to me," Kevin declared. Those words pierced my heart like a dagger. A real dad? Then what was I? Some relic from the past, a prop in his carefully staged life. That's when Kevin spotted me. "Dad, perfect timing," he said, walking over with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He thrust a wrinkled paper bag into my hands. It felt practically empty. Inside sat a basic digital watch, generic brand, plastic band, with the price sticker still attached. $20. The card tucked inside made it worse. "Dad, I know you prefer simple things. Hope this serves you well. Happy Father's Day, Kevin." I felt everyone's eyes on me, waiting to see my reaction, while the spotlight stayed firmly on Robert and his truck. I forced a grateful smile, but holding that watch. The message was crystal clear to my son. I was worth exactly $20. The group immediately returned their attention to Robert's gift, as if I had become invisible. Only Sophie approached quietly, whispering, "Grandpa, you deserve so much better than this." Those were the only kind words I heard that entire afternoon, but the real shock was still to come. "Don't go anywhere." I sat off to the side, watching Kevin bask in praise from his friends, Robert's business associates, and neighbors, everyone celebrating his supposed generosity. Nobody asked about my gift. Nobody noticed that the actual father had brought dessert, arrived first and been acknowledged last. Staring at that untouched tiramisu, each glance felt bitter. I'd worked back-to-back shifts for 30 years. I'd sacrificed everything so Kevin could get an education, build a career, buy a home, start a family. This was the first time I'd been assigned a dollar value, and it stung. When the celebration wound down, Kevin gave me a quick, distracted hug. "Hope you like the watch, Dad," he mumbled, already looking back at the group surrounding Robert. I walked to the parking lot and climbed into my aging Honda Accord, the same car I'd been driving for 12 years because replacing it had never fit the budget. On the drive home, two realizations crystallized. That Father's Day, Kevin had reduced me to a background character in his life, and everyone's laughter was the soundtrack to a humiliation nobody else could see. My role as provider and protector had morphed into something far lesser. Piece of furniture, present but unnoticed. Dignity, that simple, forgotten concept suddenly became my lifeline. What I discovered next would change everything forever. Keep watching to see what I found. Sitting in my recliner, staring at that $20 watch on the coffee table, a question I'd never dared ask consumed me. When exactly did I become invisible to my own son? I turned toward the hallway closet, where I'd kept every receipt, every record proof of a lifetime spent giving without limits. Standing up, I pulled out the storage box. Inside lay documentation of everything. Kevin's swim lessons, the bicycle he begged for at 17, tuition payments for that expensive private college, the loan I took for his wedding, the mortgage I covered when he lost his job, the weekly grocery money that kept his family afloat when he couldn't. The numbers, cold and undeniable, totaled more than $220,000 in silent sacrifices. Yet none of that money, none of those sleepless nights, none of that unwavering love had earned the most fundamental thing: respect and appreciation. On a day meant to honor fathers, that early morning, after hours of staring at those documents, unable to sleep, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible just days before. For the first time in decades, I was going to prioritize myself, not from spite, not from anger. I'd do it because I finally understood. You can't demand dignity if you never stand up for it. The next move I made would shock everyone. Stay tuned to find out what happened. The investigation begins. Banks open at 9. I had a few hours to decide what kind of father I wanted to be moving forward: the one who accepts scraps of affection to avoid losing his son, or the one who draws a line, even if it comes late. When I stood, I felt an unusual calm mixed with apprehension, like stepping through a door that locks behind you. As dawn broke, I prepared for what came next. This would be the last Father's Day Kevin remembered for a cheap watch. It would also be the first where I learned to value myself before waiting for others to value me. The days following that, humiliation turned my mind into a maze of memories demanding attention. Every scene that surfaced felt like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place. I stayed up through the nights, sitting in my chair, replaying decades of devotion that seemed to have culminated in total insignificance. Kevin was 6 when he lost his mother in that car crash. Just 6 years old, in an instant. I became both parents, the sole foundation of his collapsing world. I remembered those first nights, him crying for her, clinging to me so tight I thought my ribs might crack. "Don't leave me, Dad," he'd sob, and I promised again and again I never would. I worked double shifts at the warehouse for 11 straight years. No vacations, no days off that weren't for him. But what I uncovered in those old documents would reveal the full extent of the betrayal. Keep watching. Memories of sacrifice. While other men my age went fishing or caught games with buddies on weekends, I was shopping for ingredients to cook his favorite meals or driving him to baseball practice, where I never missed a single game. When he turned 17, he wanted that specific mountain bike, $850. My monthly salary barely hit $1,100. But the look in his eyes when he saw it in the store window convinced me. I survived on rice and beans for 2 months to pay for it. But he got his bike. When he hugged me that day, saying, "You're the greatest dad ever," I felt every sacrifice validated. College was a whole new level. Kevin wanted to study business at an elite private university, one of the most expensive in the state. "Dad, my future depends on this," he pleaded, with those eyes he inherited from Sarah. Annual tuition, $32,000. I sold Sarah's beloved silver sedan, one that still smelled like her perfume, to cover the first year. The next 3 years, I financed by taking a night security job on top of my warehouse shifts. I slept maybe for hours, then headed back to the warehouse. Co-workers said I was insane, that I'd work myself into an early grave. But all I could think about was Kevin's graduation, watching him cross that stage. And when he did graduate, he found me in the crowd and shouted, "This one's for you, Dad." I wept that day, feeling like the proudest father alive. Little did I know how that pride would later turn to heartbreak. Stay with me. The wedding and beyond. Kevin's wedding to Jennifer cost $18,000. "Dad, I'm only doing this once," he told me, and I never able to say no. Took another personal loan. At 67, I'm still making payments. Watching his joy that day, spinning Jennifer under the chandeliers, made me feel I'd fulfilled my purpose as a father. When they bought their first house, they needed $65,000 for the down payment. I didn't hesitate. I emptied my entire savings account. Then came furniture, another for $1,500. Central air, $3,200. Fence for the backyard, $1,800. Every request arrived with hugs and promises of lifelong gratitude, which I believed were heartfelt. The toughest period hit when Kevin lost his job 2 years ago. For 9 months, I covered his $2,100 mortgage, plus $450 weekly for groceries, Jennifer's dental work, Sophie's gymnastics fees. Meanwhile, Jennifer kept her salon appointments and designer shopping habits, and I worked overtime to maintain their lifestyle. Doing the math during those sleepless nights, I reached a number that made my blood run cold. Over $220,000 invested in Kevin's adult life. Money I didn't have, money I borrowed, money earned through exhaustion, costing me my health and any dreams of my own. But it wasn't just the money. It was the nights sitting up with him through childhood fevers, the baseball games where I cheered the loudest, the parent-teacher conferences I never skipped. And then I discovered something that would validate my worst suspicions. Don't click away. The teenage heartbreaks I helped him navigate without judgment. The guidance I offered when he felt lost. I particularly remembered when he was 18 and his first serious girlfriend broke his heart. He locked himself in his room for 4 days, refusing food. I sat outside his door for hours, sharing stories about my own first love, explaining how pain teaches us to grow. Eventually, he emerged and embraced me, crying, "Thanks for getting it, Dad. I don't know what I'd do without you." Things started shifting when he met Jennifer and her family. Initially, I thought it natural young men want to impress their girlfriends' parents. Robert owned a successful contracting business, lived in an upscale neighborhood, had connections throughout the city. They're showing me the ropes, Kevin explained. Robert's got contacts that could really boost my career. Gradually, phone calls became rare. Visits grew shorter. Plans with me got cancelled because something came up with Jennifer's family. Yet, I remained the first person he called needing money. The first he turned to with problems. I become an ATM with emotions, the bank of Dad. Never closed. Never charging interest. The final straw wasn't just that cheap watch. It was realizing Kevin had deliberately chosen to humiliate me on my special day. This wasn't an oversight or budget constraint. It was a conscious choice to spend $55,000 on Robert while allocating me $20. Those nights of reflection revealed a truth that would set me free. Keep watching to see what I did next. Those reflective nights exposed a crushing reality. Kevin had reduced me to a resource. When he needed money, fatherly wisdom, advice, or emotional support, Dad was there. When he needed to impress influential people, climb socially, or advance professionally, Robert filled that role. For 3 decades, I'd mistaken being needed for being valued. I'd interpreted his financial dependence as love. I'd assumed my unconditional availability was appreciated when actually it was simply expected. Sitting in my living room, surrounded by receipts documenting a life of devotion, I finally grasped that the problem wasn't solely Kevin. I shared responsibility. I taught my son he could disrespect me because I'd never demanded respect. I'd shown him my love cost nothing because I'd given it freely for 30 years. The clarity I gained those nights felt absolute and frightening. For the first time, I saw reality stripped of unconditional love's filters, without the excuses fathers create to protect their children's image. Kevin wasn't a good son who'd made a mistake. He was a grown man who'd learned to exploit people, starting with the one who loved him most. The following Monday, when banks opened, I'd faced the hardest choice of my life. Continue being the father who accepts scraps just to avoid losing his son, or choose dignity, even if it meant destroying the relationship as I knew it. What I did that Monday morning would shock my entire family. Stay tuned. Monday morning arrived. I dressed in my best suit and ate breakfast calmly for the first time in weeks. What I felt wasn't revenge, it was resolve. I would teach Kevin something he should have learned 30 years ago. Real love includes boundaries, and dignity isn't negotiable, not even with family. That morning, as sunrise painted the rooftops, I began reconstructing Kevin's recent financial moves. This wasn't about hurt feelings or ancient grudges anymore. Now I sought concrete evidence, details only a father who'd watched his son grow could recognize. My mind, sharpened by years of routine, became analytical and precise. I started with the file I'd kept locked away for 2 decades: bank statements, insurance documents, property deeds, and contracts for the family business I'd built through sheer determination. From the beginning, I'd given Kevin access to certain joint accounts, believing it would teach him financial responsibility. Reviewing recent transactions, though, the picture was grim. Month after month, withdrawals didn't match normal expenses or genuine emergencies. Instead, there were lavish transfers to unfamiliar accounts, luxury purchases, payments to car dealerships having nothing to do with budgets I'd established. Robert's name appeared repeatedly as a beneficiary of substantial amounts. Clearly, Kevin had been redirecting funds I'd intended for his security and future, toward his in-laws, his business mentors, as I'd found him calling them in text messages on his phone during a recent visit. The depth of this betrayal was about to become even clearer. Don't miss what happens next. Alarm bells rang in my head. How deep did this manipulation go? I realized this wasn't about one expensive Father's Day gift for Robert. This was systematic resource diversion, a calculated transfer of my life's work to another family. Kevin had been managing the family business carelessly for months, signing contracts with diminished profit margins, always justified by attracting new partners or expanding our network in areas where Robert held influence. I needed to determine if these moves had legitimate reasoning or concealed deliberate betrayal. I contacted David Reynolds, my most trusted attorney, without revealing my full suspicions yet. David, discreet and straightforward, reviewed everything silently before delivering his assessment. Richard, you have sufficient evidence here to reverse any maneuvers Kevin orchestrated without your knowledge. The law protects the rightful owner's interests, especially in cases of trust abuse. His words confirmed what I needed to hear. I wasn't alone in this fight. Together, we outlined a strategy. Cancel shared authorities, revoke access to joint accounts, formalize management changes in the company. Everything needed absolute clarity before taking action. We agreed to bring in my nephew, Marcus, as a new partner, someone who'd always shown integrity and loyalty. The plan had two phases. First, protect personal assets. I visited the bank around 10:30 that morning, requesting immediate freezes on all accounts Kevin accessed, removing his name as co-holder, ensuring all correspondence came exclusively to me. What came next would remove Kevin's control completely. Keep watching to see how this unfolds. The bank manager, accustomed to families fragmenting over less, process each cancellation without questions, sensing the gravity beneath my calm demeanor. Phase 2 was more delicate. The company, at Notary Frank Morrison's office, with David, Marcus, and two outside witnesses present. I formalized the revocation of any amendments signed under pressure or without my explicit consent. Frank examined every page, certifying before witnesses the restoration of my authority as majority partner. Furthermore, Marcus was appointed primary co-manager with predominant voting power. The company was now protected from future manipulations. Kevin was reduced to a minor shareholder with no access or privileges. The process consumed over 6 hours, but every minute felt like reclaiming my life. Signing the final page, I experienced mixed emotions: pride at protecting what I'd built, but bitter sadness that I needed protection from my own son. I'd rather have enjoyed the family business as a generational legacy, not as a shield against betrayal. But reality demanded action, and survival instinct guided me. Back home, I reviewed my will. For years, Kevin had been solar, convinced that despite disagreements, blood mattered most. But that afternoon, sitting at my desk, looking at Sarah's portrait and Sophie's photo on the shelf, I understood. A legacy must be earned, not assumed. The changes I made to my will would be the final lesson. Stay with me to hear what I decided. I rewrote every clause. Kevin would receive just 5% of assets, a symbolic gesture matching his insulting gift. The remainder would go to charitable organizations helping fatherless children. And to Marcus, who'd proven his worth in critical moments. I informed nobody of these changes. Stealth was my advantage. Kevin continued his routine, unaware of the tide gathering beneath his feet. Jennifer, oblivious, posted photos online: the truck, outings with Robert, broadcasting images of a perfect life built on my money. That evening, my house felt different. I walked through the living room and looked at that $20 watch still sitting on the table, the object whose insignificance had triggered an invisible earthquake. I promised myself not to look back with bitterness, but with the peace of someone whose learned self-respect trumps superficial reconciliation. This wasn't war. It was the end of resignation. My phone stayed quiet. Papers were secure. The company protected. My will reflected an irreversible change. For the first time in years, I could sleep without jolting awake, haunted by unappreciated sacrifice. I no longer depended on others' compassion or the gratitude that never came. Now dignity controlled my destiny, while the outside world spun on. Unaware of my transformation, I was weaving threads of justice without hatred, only fairness. But Kevin was about to discover everything had changed. Don't miss his reaction in the next part. Every move was a step toward freedom, a life where respect and principles weren't negotiable for comfort or tradition. Much remained to face, especially when Kevin discovered the castle built on my effort had begun crumbling, brick by brick, without scandal or noise, only through facts. The following days passed with unsettling calm, like silence before a storm only I could anticipate. Kevin continued his normal life, completely oblivious to the earthquake brewing beneath his financial stability. I watched from a distance, morning calls coordinating company work, afternoons at Robert's planning future projects, family dinners where Jennifer shared stories about her generous father-in-law. Phase 1 of my plan executed with precision. Every morning I verified bank blocks were active, confirming no unauthorized transactions could compromise my decisions. The bank sent daily notifications of denied access attempts, though they hadn't been significant enough yet to alert Kevin. His daily expenses flowed through smaller accounts he managed independently, maintaining the illusion of normalcy. Marcus proved the perfect ally for this silent transition. At 36, the same age as Kevin, he had solid business sense and genuine respect for the legacy I'd built. During those weeks, I gradually introduced him to sensitive company operations without revealing my full intentions yet. He interpreted these changes as natural evolution toward greater involvement, never suspecting he was being prepared to completely replace Kevin in management. Then came the day Kevin tried to use his credit card. What happened next changed everything. Keep watching. The awakening came on a Wednesday morning, exactly 4 weeks after my bank visit. Kevin tried using his corporate credit card for a substantial purchase at an electronics store, preparing for the new baby. The transaction was automatically declined, triggering a chain of events that would shatter his false sense of security forever. His first reaction was technical disbelief. He immediately called the bank, assuming it was a system error, a temporary glitch resolved with a simple phone call. The account representative explained with cold professionalism that the card had been cancelled by the primary account holder's decision. Kevin insisted there must be confusion. He'd been an authorized user for over 6 years. Mr. Thompson. Modifications were made personally by Mr. Richard Thompson on March 20th. All additional cards linked to his accounts were cancelled. That day, the employee informed him with the neutrality of someone stating objective facts. Kevin hung up with trembling hands, understanding for the first time something fundamental had shifted in his relationship with me. He immediately tried accessing joint accounts through online banking, but his credentials were deactivated. The system displayed a brief message: user not authorized. Contact primary account holder. Reality began crushing him like an avalanche. For years he'd managed those accounts as his own, spending freely without oversight, and now found himself completely excluded from the financial system, supporting his lifestyle. His desperation led him to make 47 phone calls in one day. Don't miss what happened next. Jennifer, initially sympathetic to what seemed a temporary technical issue, began showing anxiety when Kevin confessed the problem's magnitude. "What do you mean you can't access anything? Aren't you a partner in your father's company?" she asked with growing disbelief. Kevin had to admit he'd never reviewed legal documents in detail, trusting blindly that his position was secured by family bonds. That afternoon, Kevin appeared at the business offices, hoping to clarify the situation. However, he met an even more devastating surprise. Marcus was presiding over a meeting with main contractors, occupying the desk Kevin considered his by hereditary right. Employees greeted him politely, but clearly they'd received instructions to direct all important decisions to Marcus. "Where's my father?" Kevin asked tensely, trying to maintain composure before curious workers. Marcus replied diplomatically, "Uncle Richard is home resting. He's tasked me with overseeing operations this week." That word "tasked" echoed like a verdict. His cousin, 3 years younger, was exercising authority Kevin had assumed was his. When Kevin tried reviewing the company's financial files, he discovered his access was restricted. Security codes had been changed. His name removed from the list of authorized users on the computer system. Every attempt to retrieve information met digital barriers evidencing meticulous planning of his exclusion. Kevin's panic drove him to call me 47 times in one day. Here's how I responded. The first call came at 6:20 that morning, interrupting my quiet breakfast with newfound desperation's urgency. I looked at the screen showing Kevin's name and decided not to answer. I needed him to feel uncertainty's weight, to briefly experience the anxiety of not getting immediate answers to his demands. The phone stopped after 9 rings, but I knew it was just the beginning of a very long day. Call after call came from his cell, the house phone, Jennifer's number. He even tried the company line. Each rejected attempt increased his desperation. Text messages started when phone calls failed. "Dad, please pick up. It's urgent." Then, "I need to understand what's happening with the accounts." By the 10th message, his composure vanished. "Please don't do this to me. I have urgent expenses and Jennifer is worried. I need to talk to you now." I answered the 47th. "Call it exactly to 35 p.m. His voice was unrecognizable, trembling, high-pitched, loaded with vulnerability I hadn't heard since his teens. "Dad, thank God. I've been trying all morning. Something terrible happened with the bank." "Nothing terrible happened, Kevin," I replied with calm, contrasting his hysteria. "I simply decided to cancel your access to my personal accounts. From now on, you live exclusively on your own money." The silence that followed was so long, I thought the call dropped, until I heard his ragged breathing. "What do you mean, my own money?" "Dad, I work in the family company. I have responsibilities. I have a family to support. You can't just do this without." Warning, his tone shifted from pleading to indignation, but I was prepared. "Keep watching to see how this played out." I calmly informed him all changes were made with full legal counsel, documents properly signed and certified, and David would gladly explain legal aspects if he had questions. The conversation lasted over an hour, Kevin cycling through grief's stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression. He tried every argument: my advanced age, possible mental decline, third-party influence. He even insinuated Marcus had manipulated me. Every excuse was dismantled, with concrete facts and legal documentation allowing no questioning. "Dad, please think about Sophie. Think about the baby coming. Are you really going to punish the whole family for a misunderstanding over a gift?" He pleaded, using the emotional card traditionally effective with me. This time, my answer was different. "I'm not punishing anyone, Kevin. I'm teaching consequences. Sophie will always be my beloved granddaughter, and the new baby will be my grandchild too. You can still be my son when you learn to respect me." When the call ended, Kevin had exhausted all arguments without getting a single concession. I'd explained clearly. Automatic transfers were cancelled. Company participation reduced to legal minimum. Access to family resources definitively ended. No negotiation possible. No second chance. The decisions were made and irrevocable. But the story doesn't end there. 6 months later, everything had changed. Stay with me for the conclusion. 6 months after that definitive confrontation, life had acquired a completely different flavor. My house had transformed into a refuge of tranquility, where every decision responded solely to my own wishes. Kevin experienced brutal economic reality without paternal subsidies. Robert's truck was the first sacrifice, sold at a loss to cover immediate expenses. The humiliation of explaining to Robert why he needed to take back the gift was, as Sophie discreetly told me, one of the hardest moments. Jennifer had to give up her luxury salon, find more affordable alternatives, drastically reduce grocery shopping. Social outings practically disappeared, and the Maldives trip was indefinitely shelved. The family business under Marcus's direction experienced unexpected growth. My nephew proved to have strategic vision Kevin never developed, implementing operational improvements, increasing productivity without compromising quality. Kevin made several indirect reconciliation attempts, birthday cards with elaborate messages, invitations to family events through Sophie, even modest gifts left at my door, all received courteously but without the emotional reciprocity he hoped for. My position remained firm. Respect isn't regained with symbolic gestures after decades of neglect. The birth of my second grandchild, a boy they named Richard in an obvious reconciliation gesture, confronted me with complex emotions. I visited the hospital, offered genuine congratulations, interacted affectionately with my new grandson, but refused any offer to help with medical expenses. This is how our story ends, not with a fairy tale reunion, but with something more valuable. Watch until the very end.